Welcome to the Health Made Easy podcast. Health advice so easy, you'll feel more confident about your body, health, and life. And now, your host, Dr. Connie Jean.
Hi everybody, Q&A Friday. I hope you guys are having a good week wherever you are. It's been a wet one out there today. But anyway, the first question comes from Adiza Noor. And she asks, I've recently had hives and it comes and it goes. Is it a flare? Well, hives are just basically your immune system's way of telling you something is not right, that there is a definitive trigger that causes your immune system to react to something. It can be food, it can be some chemical, it can be a prolonged exposure to, way back when. So we don't really know. I do know that it's not a direct correlation to whether you're having a flare or not, but it's not to say that it can't lead into another flare. But hives, in and of itself, it can be just an transient thing that can come and go. Having said that, that's how I started my path into getting diagnosed with lupus, because I started out with a hive. It was an allergic reaction. It's a histamine reaction where you get welts in your back, and I was scratching and I was studying outside, and then I had to go to the ER, and Benadryl didn't work, and then that never subsided. So that was sort of my way of getting diagnosed, and then it just kind of, my immune system never shut off after that. So what most people that have lupus understand autoimmunity to be is often it's mistakenly thought of an overreactive or overactive immune system. But in actuality, the correct term would be the immune system dysregulation. It means the system is kind of broken so that it starts to attack your own cells, your own DNA. And so you have to wonder, why is it doing that? Well, it's usually because it's getting confused because a lot of the DNA particles and damaged cellular debris gets in your system, and then your immune cells starts to look for that and then falsely thinks that it's an outside invasion happening. And that's why we have a dysregulated autoimmune system, which in our case, it starts to attack our cells. So you can just as well go into that, but it doesn't necessarily mean a direct correlation between having a flare and just a hive in and of itself. Because again, I've had hives over the course of my lupus, living with lupus for the 19 years, and it didn't necessarily coincide with any of the flares. So I hope that that's clear. Second question comes from Katie Young. She asks, what does SLE stand for? There's a lot of terminologies, right? Lupus is the most common term, but it stands for systemic, meaning it affects all systems in your body, right? All organs, anything's game for you. And then lupus means wolf, and then erythromatosis means red. And then the reason why lupus, because, in 1851, when it was coined by the doctors, patients would come in with lupus-like symptoms, and it was coined that by physicians at that time because the marks on their face resembled that one of a wolf's bite. That's how the term was coined. So obviously there's different manifestations today. It's a little bit more highly intelligent in the way we diagnose lupus. So I hope that answers your question. And then the last question comes from Cynthia Hildreth. She asks, does lupus symptoms get worse, and how long does one have it? Well, it depends on many factors. Your genetic predisposition, your genetic susceptibility, your lifestyle habits, and some of the triggers and stressors in your life can all collectively dictate that. Now, having said that, stress can cause gut permeability, meaning it really does have a play in eating up the microvilli. It's like hair-like structures in our gut lining to protect our gut, to to sort of have a defensive gateway for foreign substances that we consume in the way of food to enter our bodies. Now, when that gets depleted, we find that there's enough research to state that if indeed when we are stressed, we do affect our gut microvilli, causing atrophy and leaky gut. And then we become a susceptible host for other foreign particles to just kind of filter through freely into our system, thereby causing that overreactive or overactive or dysregulation of our immune system, causing that autoimmunity. So the whole premise of why we're here, the Lupus Rebel, is that yes, once you're diagnosed, they say you're always going to have lupus, but Lupus Rebel, in that I question that to say you can reverse lupus to have a calmer state of an immune function so that you can optimize your health. And by doing, you are not going to have any symptoms. And disease activity, we call it when you don't have any symptoms for prolonged periods of time, typically measured by your blood serology, measuring the antibodies, and of course your clinical manifestations in the way you present with symptoms, then, we call that remission state, right? So to me, if you're in a remission state and then it gets to a point where your antibodies are no longer detectable, that's a reversible state to be. I've been there many times and I strive to get there every time. I'm there now, and that's where we aim to be. But the thing is, we want to maintain it there. But, biologically, physiologically, we're constantly evolving, we're constantly changing. So our situations change, our lives change. Life is stress. And as we get older, we have a little bit more compromised immune system, and our ability to regenerate cellularly decreases significantly. So we've got a lot going against us. Having said that, on the flip side, the flares when we're younger, when our hormone system is very, very, active in the very reproductive years with hormones like estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone, and then we're living our lives that way. Women tend to have a little bit more flares that way. And then statistically, in a research article that I read, that as we get older, perimenopause into menopausal age, actually the flares decrease. So there's a link to the hormone aspects with lupus, and that's something I'm looking a little bit further into with an aide of my colleague, Pam Hyde, who's a DO, an OB-GYN physician. So more of that to come in the near future. But that's it for Q&A Friday. So those of you who are new, every Monday, our admin, Chris, will be posting and pinning it to the top of our page to kind of create a discussion where you guys can ask all kinds of questions. And then on Friday of each week, I come before you like this and then answer those questions. So I hope you ask away. And until next week, I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to the Health Made Easy podcast. www.drconniejean.com